First thing I notice when I look back on Mytus VII, at least compared to my more recent maps, is how vertical it is, in that it really will screw with flying units in a way I didn't comprehend at the time. The unnamed units the map editor is measured in are the same ones used by Alamo, I believe. Some of these vertical jumps are of distance that can go up to about 200, which is pretty radical considering that many flying units hover at a distance of about 150 to 250. The wall props used are roughly 320 in size, so this neatly allows most of the concrete base to operate on a 300 by 300 grid system. The map only uses limited base game assets, yet despite this, I think I did a pretty good job of making it look good. The liberal application of antenna helped break up the sterile look. The blue shield in front of the hangar is the only non-base game asset, added after the fact. Inside, lower below the playing area, is the Millennium Falcon, a reference to the book Han Solo at A Star's End, the original appearance of the planet Mytus VII, back in 1978. The giant cylinder in the corner is meant to represent Star's End itself. The terrain for natural areas around the base are actually based on a height map taken from Mars' surface. Aside from smoothing out some areas, creating the base, the stairs taking especially long, I also raised up the terrain around these textured craters and lowered it in these mechanical dips. The moon craters were done by testing the appropriate textures to see where they lined up, then carefully applying it primarily to the edges, and raising the terrain around these edges. A simple trick, but it helps break up the ground and creates a natural obstacle for gameplay. Like the base itself, the mechanical pits were created with the leveling tool. The textures on the edges were done by setting the tilt angles to 9 degrees so that they applied vertically, which helped use them more efficiently. That said, I actually did use the textures somewhat inefficiently, as I was still fairly new to them and used up nearly every slot. Despite this, I think the map turned out well, as while some were redundant, the overall look is not too uniform. Being set in space, I adjusted certain nature settings to be lifeless, such as disabling the clouds and the wind. Around the edges, there can be seen hovering asteroids. They won't be seen most of the time, but if someone turns on the camera to cinematic mode, they should show up. The gameplay aspects of the map are somewhat lacking. The base layout is a mess. There are 2 shield domes, the out-base structure markers are defended as in-base structure markers, and the shield generator itself is not only under the shield dome, but hard to hit as well. All of this reflects the defensive-leaning mindset I had at the time, which was before I'd seen a lot of the maps play out in practice. To some extent, Mytus VII can get away with this, because it is a planet that will likely only be conquered once per galactic conquest due to how remote it is, and while it does lean heavily in favor of the defender, Mytus VII is generally given very little potential for defensive buildup. There are things I regret here, and I might do touch-ups on it in the future, but I think it's still feasible.